Good evening. Welcome to Columbia Heights Public Schools Independent School District Number 13 School Board meeting for Tuesday, October 23rd, 2018. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask you to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Welcome again. Holla, if you would, please roll call.
Lewis. Here. Larkin.
Here.
Severson.
Here.
Mueller.
Here.
Palmer.
Here.
A Samurai. Here.
Okay, thank you. Our mission statement: Columbia Heights Public Schools create worlds of opportunity for every learner in partnership with supportive small-town communities by challenging all to discover their talents, unleash their potential, and develop tools for lifelong success. Our core values are community, excellence, collaboration, integrity, respect, courage, and innovation. Next up would be the approval of our agenda. So if we can get a motion to move that forward.
So moved.
Was Laura? Laura, thank you.
Second.
Molly? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Announcements: November 6th, it's a Tuesday, is Election Day. November 8th and 9th, no school grading and in-service days. November 13th, 5 p.m. subcommittee on policy. November 13th also, 6:30, tenured teachers reception here in the community room. November 13th at 7 p.m., regular school board meeting. November 20th at 5 p.m., there'll be a school board listening session in the Family Center. November 20th also at 5:30, school board work session. November 22nd and 23rd, there'll be no school for the Thanksgiving holiday. And November 27th at 7 p.m., there'll be a regular school board meeting here in the community room. There's no correspondence tonight. Dawn, correct? Thank you. Communication to the board. At this time, any citizen or employee may briefly address the school board. Board will listen to brief remarks, ask clarifying questions, and if desired, request that administration follow up. The board will not take action at this meeting on requests presented at this time. Doesn't look like there's anybody here, so we'll keep moving. Next up would be the consent agenda, which includes the personnel report. A motion to move that forward.
So moved.
Lorian?
Second.
Natty? Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Next up is an acknowledgement of contributions. As we normally will do, I'll ask for motion second, and I'll read it, and then we can discuss. So motion?
So moved.
Lorian and Molly with the second. And it reads as follows. Whereas Minnesota Statute 123B.02 permits school boards to receive, for the benefit of the district, bequests, donations, or gifts for any proper purpose and apply the same to the purpose designated. In that behalf, the board may act as trustee of any trust created for the benefit of the district and for the benefit of pupils thereof. Therefore, be it resolved by the School Board of Columbia Heights Public Schools, Independent School District Number 13, that the school board accepts with appreciation the contributions detailed in the background in the amount of $4,582.42. Under monetary, a donation of $650 was made to Columbia Heights Public Schools by Mike Riley to help cover the cost of renting out Brooklyn Center swimming pool for the swim team. A donation of $1,500, which would be $500 each, was made to Highland, Valley View, and North Park Elementary by the Columbia Heights Lions Club for hats and mittens. Value in kind, donation of school supplies to Valley View by United Pain Center for Student Needs, estimated value $335. Donation of school supplies to Valley View by Yolanda Palmas for Student Needs, a value of $25. Donation of school supplies to Highland Elementary by Lisa Krebs for Student Needs, estimated value $65. Donation of school supplies to Highland Elementary by Susie Anderson for Student Needs, estimated value $5. Donation of school supplies to Valley View Elementary by Faulding American Legion for Student Needs, estimated value of $100. Donation of school supplies to Valley View by Mark Emmy for Student Needs, estimated value $357.50. Donation of books to Valley View Elementary by Barb Nundahl for Student Needs, estimated value $20. And then a donation of 4 iPads to Highland Elementary by DonorsChoose.org for Ms. Hines' kindergarten class, estimated value $1,524.82. Total fiscal 2018-19 monetary contributions to date, $13,676.05. Discussion, comments, or questions?
It's incredible. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very much appreciated. It's great.
Okay.
It's fun to read.
Very good. Yep, thank you. It's always nice to have that part in our agenda. There's no other discussion. Hala, if you would, this is a resolution, so we need a roll call vote, please.
Larkin,
Aye.
Severson,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
Palmer,
Aye.
Samurai, aye, and Lewis.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you again to those that donated. Next up, discussion reports and information items. Start with reports from members of the board. Board members will report on activities since the last regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Education. I will go first. The majority of what I have been doing is having lots and lots of conversations with constituents throughout the community. So thank you to everybody for taking the time to ask the questions that they've had. So, Molly?
Yeah, I attended the work session and listening sessions last week. We did have a couple of people come, and that'll be reported out on later, correct? Also attended Columbia Academy conferences, which were very well attended as usual. Always good to see the parent turnout there. And a couple of football games, JV and varsity. Also attended some strikers games, which is always fun. Encourage people to come out and watch them. Next week they have 2 home games on Monday and Wednesday at 4:15. Lots and lots of conversations with community members. Thank you.
Thank you. Hala?
I attended the work session and had lots of conversations with community members and constituents.
Okay, thank you. Laura?
Well, I also attended the conferences over at Columbia Academy, and it was really nice to sit down and talk with all the staff and seeing all the parents there and all the kids. Really excited. I also attended the work study session last week, as well as a subcommittee on policy, and of course, conversations.
Okay. Lauren?
All right, I also had many conversations with community members, attended the work session, high school and middle school football games, and some girls' swim meets, and Columbia Academy conferences as well, and also had breakfast with Hala, so appreciate your time as well.
Is that going around? Breakfast with Hala, huh? All right.
Kind of got a ring to it.
I've also had lots of contact and questions and conversations with community members. John and I both attended a chair meeting last week, just like everyone, the work session. I just came from a tennis banquet, which is fun to celebrate the end of a season. Been to a football game, and I believe was academic awards night within this segment.
I think it was, you're right. Yep.
John and I were also at academic award night, so that was fun to see the kids and celebrate their academic achievements. So, yeah,
Anything else?
done.
Okay, all right. We will continue forward. We're going to be moving on to information items, starting with Highland Elementary, your building vision card.
Good evening, Chair Larkin, members of the board. I'm here with Principal Michelle DeWitt to share the Highland Vision Card tonight. And before I hand it over to Michelle, I wanted to share on Monday I was in her building and was walking down the hallways. And I was excited to see a group of students sitting in the hallways working together. And all of a sudden, one of these students jumps up and he goes, "I did it! I did it!" And all the other kids were cheering for him. So when I really think about Highland, I think about that. I think about the focus on the academics, but also that sense of belonging where students cheer each other on and they're excited to learn new things. So, Principal DeWitt.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Larkin, members of the board. Tonight I'll be here to present Highland's vision card for this year in alignment with our mission, creating worlds of opportunities for all learners, and as well as covering all of the core values tonight. Highland continues to have very strong enrollment. Currently, we have 578 students, and of those, 59 are pre-K4 students. So we have a really nice full building, especially with little kids. Our demographics are almost identical to last year. We're very much a building of kind of a third, but quite a bit of variety within our demographics. We also have maintained really similar rates of English language learners, have stayed consistently about 30% each year. Pretty significantly higher rate of special education students at Highland. Even, taking into account, we do have one level 3 program. We have the level 3 ASD program for serving students in kindergarten through grades 5. However, that is a very high percentage for a building. Free and reduced lunch rate, our current rate is 70.1%, so a little bit below last year's rate of 79, so a little bit lower there, and serve about 2% of our students are currently homeless. So we're going to get into strategic direction A, turbocharging what works and redesigning what we need to do better. Most of these standards have stayed the same, pretty consistent throughout the last few years as I reviewed previous PowerPoints. But the use of articulated standards-based curriculum is 100% across every classroom, including our pre-K classrooms. All licensed staff actively engaged in PLCs is very strong. I would say we had a meeting last week of the teaching, it's called Lead and Learn, so it's all of the principals, most of the directors, and really talked about what PLCs look like in all of our buildings. And we really have a united focus on every grade level, as well as specialists, special education, are involved in PLCs now in our building. So that is a pretty significant change from the previous years. And then use of formative instruction to differentiate it in the classroom is measured through walkthroughs. So we, basically we can use the walkthroughs that we had last year as after we've presented last year through the ones that we've had this year to really look at the use of formative instruction and how teachers use that to change instruction or differentiate for students who need it. Again, through A4, A5, and A6, very similar scoring as last year, but we do use walkthroughs for all staff or all licensed staff in the building. There is a strong use and embedded technology in every classroom, and the rating when we do pathwise evaluation system for our tenured teachers is consistently proficient to distinguished. Very few tenured teachers score below a proficient rating. Finishing up with strategic direction A, multi-tiered interventions for academics as well as behavior are seen in every classroom. The presence of STEAM is seen in most classrooms, really strong in the science areas, so 3 through 5, still developing or used certain quarters and not other quarters in K through 2 as the curriculum rotates through the district. So there are times when kindergarten through grade 2 have science off and maybe focusing on another area. Oh, for some reason, I thought we were done with A. Participation in arts activities and athletics is very strong. We're able to really increase the participation through Encore. Participation gap between the groups is very small. Through Encore, special education, and activities, we have very well represented numbers of students. And then parent engagement, I would say most of you at the table have had children go through Highland or have been visible through evening activities that we have. We're a very highly attended building when we do have evening events for families. Our MAP growth, so last year was the last year we'll be doing MAP, or we did MAP. This year we're switching over to FAST, so this is last year you'll see this data. But the students in grade 2 did make less than expected growth based on the MAP. In math made better growth in reading, about 45 to 54%, making the growth that was expected. Percentage of students by group, or the difference, was pretty good as far as 20 to 29% of students showing a difference. So pretty stable across our demographic range. And we also saw similar data when we're looking at our MCA scores. The students perform pretty equally across demographic groups. CBM data for reading, again, we look at this data quarterly, and so it's, I would say, more students make the fall growth targets for CBM, but when we get to the spring, they start to fall behind as the reading, the growth target becomes significantly higher in reading. So we're hoping to see a little bit more accurate data when we're looking at FAST. It's the CBM data that we had wasn't highly predictable for the MCA scores that we got. So we did have more students who were proficient that looked like they weren't proficient based on the CBM. So we're hoping to see a better connection. Again, looking at MCA scores in reading, we are below 60% proficiency in reading and math. Science, we stayed stable. The last few years, we've had higher science scores. With, as I said, I know last year with a consistent science teacher has really helped at Highland. And again, that gap between reading and math has been pretty good. At Highland, it's not an area where it's been an area of concern. So we do look at that as one of the components of any demographic group against the all. Another area that we look at yearly for the strategic plan, and then we also look at some of it we look at weekly, but for sure monthly, that we take a look at is out of school suspensions, and then we also look at more than just what's covered in B14, but we really look at students who are being sent out of class either for what used to be called time to think visit, now reset room visit. We look at that weekly. So every Friday we take a strong look at the students who are coming out and then put interventions in place. Most of those students will go into a program called check-in, check-out with our dean or the social worker. We also look at the out-of-class referrals for what's considered an office referral or a more severe offense, and we look at those monthly. So again, we're looking for patterns and then making sure the students are getting interventions and resources to help reduce the amount of referrals they're receiving. I'm not going to go into a grave detail with these, but just to kind of show, we do have the same committees as last year with a little bit of reorganization. Our leadership committee now is taking on CCC, which is the Culture Climate Committee, and then we have a separate technology committee to align with the district-wide committees. Committee celebrations, again, we like to really highlight the fact that we have absolutely outstanding attendance at our events that we hold. We served over 250 meals at our fall information night and family picnic. We also took lots of pictures. I think I shared some of those at the last time I was here. So great event. We anticipate that we'll have probably 400 or more people attend our turkey bingo. That's the first Friday in November, and it's always a great night because we get a lot of families, but we also get a fair amount of community members that night that do not have children at Highland. Our equity committee continues to work on training our own staff and really providing information really to staff and to families. We do some information through our newsletters as well as Blackboard messages. Each committee has an initiative that they're working on for the school year. So equity really focuses on, equity and responsive classroom really focus on professional development of staff. The Parent Involvement Committee, obviously, we're continually trying to grow our parent involvement, either through volunteering or attending events, or becoming engaged through things like attending the Title I meeting, joining the PTO, or taking a more active role in the PTO. So getting to our goals, the goals are aligned with our title plan, so they may look a little bit different than last year's goals. We're looking, again, I kept the MCA goal. We certainly want to be at a higher rate than we were at this last year, so hoping for 45% of our 3rd through 5th graders being proficient or above. The other goal is the new measure instead of the CBM, which is called FastBridge. So we want to increase our proficiency rate by at least 5%. So looking at the number of students who are proficient in the fall compared to the number of students proficient in the spring. In math, I know I talked about it the last time, but one of our focus areas is Dreambox. So we're watching the reports on Dreambox to monitor the use as well as the number of students completing units in Dreambox. So we're hoping, again, to see very large growth, 70% of students meeting their expected growth there, as well as increasing our math proficiency in the MCA. And we're hoping that is going to go hand in hand with our amount of time, especially intervention time spent in math with Dreambox and fact work. In science, we're looking at, again, just maintaining at least like 45 to 50% of our 5th graders being proficient or exceeding on the science test. And then really maintaining or improving on our rates. A few slides ago, I didn't highlight that, but on the behavior slide, we suspend less than 50 students per school year, which is at a very low rate for a building our size. Obviously, you hope that you never have to put out students, but the reality is there are offenses, bullying or assault or things like that would call for a suspension. But we're at a very low rate, and we do monitor the suspensions very carefully. Again, putting interventions in place for our kind of frequent or high flyers. So we want to make sure that that we're looking at how often students are out of class, so that we're making sure that we're educating all students. So again, looking at trying to reduce the amount of times that students use the reset room. And we also very specifically and strategically look at the number of referrals of Black students, which is typically the area that most schools and districts want to reduce. The picture, I was going to say, the picture that you see up here is our first group of Highlanders of the month. So we went with we've done things like Citizen of the Month, and we've done Student of the Month. We now this year are Highlanders of the Month. So if you're in Highland, you can check out our bulletin board. We have really fancy certificates with the official Highlander on it. So the kids were excited to get that. And just a few pictures. The family pictures are from the family picnic. So again, just showing what a great turnout we had. We do give all families who came and had a picture taken, we provide them with a picture, and then we hang up a picture. We have kind of flowing banners hanging at Highland all over. And then a few students, the student in the bottom corner is working on Dreambox. And obviously the student at the top digging into a book. Questions or comments?
I just have a question about some of the interventions. And I mean, 5% of suspend, that's actually pretty commendable. But I was wondering about restorative practices for those students that their offenses, I mean, these are still young kids, where it does have to rise to a level of suspension,
And I think that's our hope this year we have rebranded our Time to Think room. We actually just spoke about that at our staff meeting today, and we had some very positive comments from one of our team about the changes, about students coming back really ready to learn, compared to coming back in previous years feeling punished. And so the idea of students going to the reset room is to turn around the rest of their day. Ultimately, that's the goal, is that if a student is asked to leave the classroom for a period of time, that we want the work that they do in there to prepare them to go back and be successful learners for the rest of the day. So we are using some restorative practices in the reset room for just when they're sent on a break. But certainly if a student has an office referral, one of the automatic practices is apology of action, whether that's to the teacher or another student. On suspensions, we do that through a readmittance conference, so really talking to the student and a family member about what occurred and then how they're going to fix what occurred. So it's more than just being out on a suspension. Some of that actually happens before they go, if it's repairing with a teacher or another student, and then obviously some happens when they come back.
I had a quick question, just looking for some clarification. The 21st century learning embedded in each classroom, and we had 81 to 90%. I know that's kind of a big window. But can you talk a little bit about why it's not in all of the classrooms, or why we're not there yet? Or are we looking at?
Right, we do it through walkthrough, so it's not just
Okay.
random that we think it is. We try to base that on how often we see things when we go and walk through classrooms. So that's one of the things that we're writing, mine's all on an iPad, we're keeping track of. How often are we seeing a content objective presented? How often are you seeing kids using integrated technology? And we do know, too, that it's a lot more in the upper grades when they have the one-on-one devices, a lot less in the younger grades. And again, it's dependent on what time you visit the class and what they happen to be doing. So the strategic plan was really our kind of measure was walkthroughs. It wasn't supposed to just be a random of what we think is occurring, but it was actually a measure of what we were seeing occurring.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you share a little bit about, I know you mentioned both seeking growth in math and in the literacy components, and you mentioned some of the dream box for math, but can you talk a little bit about some of the strategies that you're implementing to try to get those scores to grow from last year?
So first and foremost, is from the beginning of the year, we've been talking about rigor in Math and Focus. So Math and Focus is a pretty new curriculum. And in the first year, you're expected to see kind of a dip, and then after that, you should start to see a steady increase. But that's only, that steady increase is only with very rigorous instruction, rather than instruction that's meeting from a middle on down, is really instruction that's meeting the needs of the middle and up. And so really talking, highlighting to the staff about staying on the scope and sequence, to really maintaining high rigor as far as the pace that they're covering material, that we can't afford to slow down to catch every learner. Some of that's going to have to come through intervention time and not by slowing down the pace for the entire class. So the core curriculum needs to be more rigorous, finding opportunities in the day for things like we're really focusing on two main interventions, which is fact fluency work, as well as, and that's paper pencil, flashcards, sending home information, really trying to get parents on board with supporting the fact work, but then also the amount of time in Dreambox, because there's a very high correlation on how students do, especially we saw at Columbia Academy, a direct correlation in the amount of time that the students were spending in Dreambox and how many units they were completing, and then their increased proficiency in the MCA. And that's why because we saw a dip in math this year, we're really addressing math hard this year. And
we also are providing a lot of math during district PD for professional development for teachers. So we're having Math and Focus come out in November to work with all the teachers as well on different ways to scaffold and support. And then we're also working with the University of Minnesota on different research and evidence-based practices that we could start implementing. So a lot of professional development as well.
I think one of the things from the University of Minnesota visit that at least the Highland teachers came back with was the amount of fact work that needs to be done paper and pencil. Because they really highlighted not all of your fact practice can be done on the computer, but it's more of the old style. They need to have like a fact test in front of them and paper and pencil figure them out.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Summer programming update.
I'll switch with you.
Of course.
Chair Larkin, members of the school board, we're happy to be here this evening and on this autumnal evening to talk about summertime and to talk about the great programming that we were providing throughout our district for students of all ages this past summer. And I'm here with Tara Tuckrell, our Deputy Director of Teaching and Learning, with Rick Otsby, who is during the school year the assistant principal at Columbia Academy, but this evening speaking about being the secondary summer school principal, with Nathan Meyer, who is the dean at North Park, but this evening serving in the role of talking about being the elementary summer school principal, and then John Fry, our Director of Special Education. So I think that you'll hear throughout this presentation how we do create worlds of opportunity for every learner and in a variety of ways, especially in the summer. This evening, with the summer program in particular, though we have all of our core values reflected, we really in the summer are able to develop more strongly our community, collaboration, and innovation values.
Good evening, Chair Larkin, members of the board. Our goals for summer programming, there are quite a few of them for the last school year, for the last summer, and really included interventions in both literacy and math, providing an opportunity for high school students to earn credits, English language support, so we had English language teachers during our summer school days, an opportunity for fitness, including aquatics, so we used the pool next door, which was wonderful. And then also working with Dr. Fry, supporting students who receive special education services with services required from their IEPs, from the Individualized Education Plan. Opportunities for enrichment and high-quality childcare. There's a lot of research done about summer school, about summer and the summer slide, and really research has shown that students who are not participating in summer programming can lose up to a month of learning during the summer. So another real reason why we want to have programming during the summer for as many students as we can. And studies are showing that if we provide a variety of summer programming, students can not only close that slide or keep that knowledge, but they can now actually gain a lot of knowledge and achievement there. And this can last or endure for up to 2 years. So that one summer can really help a student throughout the school year and the next school year.
So, of course, this summer we were able to develop out our 21st Century funded Encore summer program. And we reframed it, you probably remember, when we came to the school board to talk about, in anticipation of our summer programs, to talk about what we were going to be offering. So we have the Elementary Encore program, which was really our summer school program for elementary and also for secondary. We'll be revisiting those numbers of participants further on in the presentation. We had Encore aquatics classes. These are free water safety classes that we've been able to offer. We started those in the spring. We offered them throughout the summer, and now we're offering them again on Saturdays. And robust participation in that very essential life skill. Also here, I've noted the Columbia Heights Recreation Encore programs. You'll remember that we are jointly submitted partners with the Rec Department, so we wanted to acknowledge those programs as well that our students participated in. With Adventure Club, we had 82 students, and with Mini Adventures, 51. We have a lot of participation with both of those childcare programs. They take place here at the Family Center. We also have a high school internship program with our Blooming Heights program. We had over 535 students participating in Blooming Heights garden visits and classes, and then we had 25 students learning how to drive safely on the roads. You're welcome. And then with our ABE program, we spoke about that at a previous meeting, but there we don't count number of participants, we count contact hours. During the summer months, 21,572 contact hours for our adults, learning English, working on their GED, high school diploma, etc. And then we had 39 participants in our yoga class, like to keep people strong and limber during the summer. We offered a lot of summer athletic programs. This is a collaboration that the Community Ed Department does with the Activities Department. You'll see that we had strength training, football camp, both for Columbia Academy and high school students. We had a volleyball camp, volleyball league, and then the tennis camp. The tennis camp was a little bit smaller because you might remember our tennis courts were being worked on. So we're looking forward to a robust program with that next summer.
All right, special education, Chair Larkin, members of the board. I'm here to talk about Thank you, Mr. Nathan. Extended school year. I'm here to talk about extended school year in special ed and the idea that our K-21 ESY is weaved into the Encore program, both here at the secondary level at the high school, as well as the elementary level at North Park, which is kind of a nice opportunity to have those inclusion opportunities for many of our students who benefit from those positive peer relationships. If we look at the first line there, the extended school year required by the IEPs, we had 27 students, K to 12th grade, who participated. And again, there are a variety of different ways to qualify. One is regression. Before or after an extended time of away from school, if students are not at the same level they were prior to leaving for an extended break, a week or two, then they would qualify for extended school year for that. Another way is through self-sufficiency, so kids who might need help with toileting, feeding, basic communication, development of stable relationships with their peers and adults. They would qualify under that. And then the third way to qualify under extended school year is through unique needs, so a kid who may have a concussion, cancer, some unique needs that would preclude them from accessing education during the school year where they need that extended time during here in Columbia Heights. The other thing is we had early childhood special education, ECSE, that's 3 to 5, so we go out to the homes. We also have speech groups here. Our speech and language folks, as well as our 3 to 5 early childhood teachers, would also provide those services to ensure students aren't regressing over the summer. And then also our ECSE home visits. Those are our birth to 2 kiddos. Those are the kids who might need help in regards to some things in the home, but also parent education is part of that our birth to 2 teachers do. So we had 8 in each of those things. And again, that comes down to our child find obligation here as a district in special ed, as well as the Help Me Grow referrals that we receive for special ed to say, oh, we need some additional help that we get from doctors, from hospitals. Any kid who's a preemie baby gets referred to special ed, and we get to assess to determine if they need that support to continue to be independent. And then the other thing that we do for special education summer programs is we provide the health services. So our school nurse is there to ensure that we have the health and safety of all students during the summertime. That's it.
Awesome. Chair Larkin, members of the board, I am going to talk about elementary summer programming, and there's a lot to talk about it, but I just want to start by saying it was so much fun. And our kids were so engaged, and they loved coming, and they chose to come, which is really awesome, I think. And it speaks volumes of our teachers and the program that we've built, and it was just really, really cool. So I know in the past we've targeted students far below grade level standards, and I know we did that as well this year, but because it was Encore, it was also open to all levels of students, which provided some really cool opportunities for students to collaborate and work together, especially students at different levels, which is really, really neat. And then we used what assessments that we used. So we looked at their math and reading assessments before and after, and then also we gave every student a survey at the end, and we gave every staff member a survey as well. So the dates, it was June 12th to June 29th. It was 3 weeks this year. I heard a lot of positivity about that from staff members. They loved that it was right after school. They had their July off to travel still, but they were in that mode, and kids were in the school mode still, and they just got to pick up where they left off, which was really neat. We had about 250 students, and like we were at North Park, which was really fun to have people up to Fridley instead of being on 49th, show off our school a little bit. And we also, it was Encore. So the classes were there was a huge variety of classes, from like a incoming first grade Sea Life class to STEM classes for our incoming fifth graders. So, and everything in between. So the students, every student I talked to loved the program, and I saw so much engagement with students. I would walk into classrooms. It was really fun being the principal, because after things kind of settled down, I just got to spend a lot of time in classrooms watching teachers teach. And I was in a fifth grade classroom, and they were building bridges, and they finally got to the point that triangles were the strongest thing to use to build a bridge to support the most weight. But it was just really cool to see the level of engagement. And right, and they also reported having fun. So they're learning and they're having fun, which is like, it doesn't get better than that. That's every day at North Park, by the way. They learned something new. Over 90% said yes. They practiced reading and math. That was another really cool thing, was to see them taking classes that didn't say reading or math in the title, but they were using those skills every single day, and enjoying them, right? As opposed to reading and like doing a worksheet, they were having fun and engaging with the skills. And then also something that's really important to us is that their teacher cared about them. Like we talked about before, right? Summer Encore provided a space where they got 2 meals a day. It was somewhere where they could show, it was just a consistent for a lot of our kids. So that's a really important part of the program as well. So just some of the things that they said that they loved, the games, making new friends. That was, being my first year in the district, it was really cool to see kids come together from all 3 elementaries. And some of them knew each other and some of them didn't, but the friendships that were forged was really fun to watch. And then the challenges, really I think it was the engagement that they loved. I think almost every kid made slime during the course of the summer, which was great for them, not great for the bus drivers. But it was fun. Our staff survey results said very similar things. I think staff, because it was Encore and they were given a little bit more freedom to design their own class, they picked topics that they were really engaged with and that they liked. And that showed, right? Like the staff really had fun, and it made the students have fun and be engaged. We also had some staff who decided to team teach, which was really, really neat. So they rotated some of the kids around and did projects together. It was just fun. It was so cool. The staff, they liked it, so having fun, being able to see kids shine. I can speak just to some of our North Park kids. Some of our kids who are our highest flyers during the school year came and had an amazing 3 weeks. They started off a little bit rough, but once they got into the routine, it was like I never saw them except for when they were in class learning. And there were kids that maybe I would see every single day during the school year. So that was really, it was a positive for me, but also for them to have that success at school. And know that they can do that. And then overall, I think the summer was successful for students and staff. Some of the staff survey results we didn't put in there talked about the awesome leadership for summer Encore at the elementary level. But anyway, and then our final, so as we talked about earlier, the preliminary data shows that there was either growth or that students maintained the level they were at when they left school in June. So that is a success, I think. We didn't move backwards. We kept those 250 kids where they needed to be.
Board Chair Larkin, members of the school board, thanks for the opportunity to talk a little bit about our middle school programs, which we run every year. Our target student population was open this year. In the past, we've recruited students who are a little bit behind academically, both in math and reading. We look at assessment data from classrooms, teacher recommendations also come into play there. Who could benefit from some extra instruction and learning over the summer, kind of the students. But this year, we were able to open it up. So who's interested in coming and participating as part of our middle school program? Some of our summer school overview, our dates, this is a little bit new. We usually started, we've kind of started all over the summer. This year we went for 3 weeks, which was nice. It was kind of a sprint, and we went right through July. So right after the 4th of July break, we started planning, and then that 9th, we did 3 weeks through July. We're located right over at the high school. We have 3 programs. One of our programs was a science ecosystems class, hands-on, outdoors, science-related curriculum. We also did a dance and musical theater class, which was a great class, 4 hours long. The kids burned a lot of energy and calories, and it really went great. They did a performance at the end that was really well done. We also did a field trip to West Side Story at Guthrie. That was probably the highlight. I was able to go along with them. And the kids had a great time. First time going to Guthrie and seeing a professional play like that was an awesome experience. We had a great time. And the program where most of our students were placed was our Academic Boost program. So what that looked like was kids every day got math, reading, science, and physical education. And we kind of rotated the kids by grade level through those 4 different classrooms. So every day we kind of hit on those. They lasted about 65 minutes each. The typical day, students would come in between 7:30 and 8 o'clock, and they'd eat breakfast. And then at 8 o'clock, we started. And then what was nice is we went a little bit longer. Lunch usually was at the end of the summer session in the past. We actually had it where it was offered, I think, at about 11:20, lasted for about 25 minutes. And then students went back to their class and finished up before boarding the bus around 1 o'clock. So. Really a nice setup for kids. That break in the middle kind of works. So they got the 2 meals and some real valuable summer instruction and learning. That program was for kids entering 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. For students entering 9th grade, we do a summer seminar class. Those are avid students. We partnership with St. Anthony in New Brighton. We do two different seminars. We do a writing seminar and a coding math seminar. So some of the highlights of the writing seminar, they went to a writing workshop at the Weissman Museum. They did a writing excursion at the University of Minnesota Institute of Art. They did a tour of the University of Minnesota Twin Cities campus. And at the end, one of the last days, they did that final essay right here in this room, right here in front of family and their teachers. So that was the writing seminar, the coding math seminar. Some of their highlights were they visited the Bakken Museum, the Science Museum. They did some video game design. They did rocket launches out on the football field, videotaped them. And they also did a University of Minnesota tour and a final video game presentation, which also was in this room, which was really cool to see some of the work that they had done over the summer and present it in front of their peers and family members. High school programming. High school programming is designed for students who are behind in credits, and they come during the summer and they're able to make up some of those credits, getting them back on track. This program is run and managed by District 916. We partner with them. There was about 100 students in the program, and they earned almost 51 credits. So that's always good to see, because a lot of times those credits are hard to come by for those students. And that means that while they were here, they were getting work done and putting those credits toward graduation. If you compare that to last year, they had less kids. 96 students were enrolled, but those students only earned about 22 credits over the summer. So, thank you.
Are there any questions?
That was a lot of information. A couple of comments. One is, all of you are extremely passionate about our summer programming. That came across to me, and I appreciate that, because I think a lot of people think that schools just go dormant during the summer, but there is obviously a lot of activity and a lot of passion from the leadership, and I appreciate that. I love the idea of the summer Encore program, both as a parent and as a board member. I think there becomes a stigma about summer school, right? You may get invited to summer school, but it's really not an invitation to a party you want to attend. Having the opportunity to go to summer Encore, I have middle school students that were excited about opportunities that they were afforded to have during the summer as well, to be with their friends and to have new experiences and learn new cool things. And it just really changes the perception of what summer school is, which I think can lead to student success, right? If the students are having fun and they're coming in with an attitude of not, I have to be here, but I get to be here, we can see that. So I really appreciate the work that you all put into this to make it happen, but the planning to really try to make a difference for our students. So I'm excited to see how our students are achieving throughout the year and through summers to come. Like you had said, they have this carry through. Obviously, the initial return shows that this was a good idea, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. So just thank you for what you've done.
Thank you.
Just a question, and I think I understand some of the logistics of it, but you guys started right after school, and you guys came back in July. And I understand Summer Academy is here, and that creates an issue, but thoughts on how is getting those kids back after a month versus they're gone for a week, or I don't know. I'm just curious as to, do you think you would have more kids if they were rolling right into it right at the end of the school year?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it worked. I liked it this year. I also thought, we have the kids too, but, sometimes, what do staff, what do they like, too, looking at it that way. They kind of like having, you get done with the school year. And I think kids maybe feel this way too. You get done with the school year, just maybe, middle school, maybe not so much elementary, but middle schools and maybe high school kids just getting away for a little bit.
Break, yeah.
And then coming back. I had some conversations with parents in June in effort to recruit and get some kids in. And they're like, oh, yeah. When we start registering kids, it's usually in the spring. And sometimes parents are like, we're going to be doing this, we're going to be doing that. And then you talk to them in June, and they're like, yeah, my son or daughter has been at home. I think this is a great idea to start getting them back out again. This isn't going the way I wanted it, or, they could really benefit from doing something like that in July. And it's just enough that it'll keep them busy. And we got some good things done.
Yeah, good. I just was curious with the targeted kids, the below average, how hard is it to get them? I get the Encore kids are excited, they want to show up, and I also understand it makes sense. You get a little break, you come back, and you still got another month. You got the month of August off too, so it's not horrible. But I was just curious if there was, how successful were we getting those targeted kids back?
Yeah, we usually can, and I think that's kind of the selling point. Is we're behind right now. What are we going to do to catch up? Yeah. And that can come in the form of, it's going to probably come in the form of putting in extra work, extra time, staying after school. Well, we got some opportunities over the summer. Let's take advantage of those too. So.
Yeah.
And I would add to that, we will be looking at what was the participation like, so that we want to make sure that we're providing programming when families would like to have their children participating. We also look at, for staffing, there are some staff, I can think of at least one, who worked both the elementary and then the secondary. So sometimes it's nice to have them separate in case staff are really wanting to work throughout the summer or with both programs. There have been other years when we've done them at the same time, and there are benefits to that too, because then everyone is focused on that, and then there's a true break. Because this year, I think that there was one day, which was right before Labor Day, when there wasn't any programming. So we also work very closely with the Buildings and Grounds Department, of course, because they're needing to do cleaning and repairs and things like that. So there's a lot of different moving parts. We try to coordinate with all of those and in order to meet the needs of the students, and also based on what our facilities can manage.
No, interesting perspective too, the break and then back again. I tried to envision my
Yeah.
own student and how much fun it would be to try to get right back to school right after they finish. So there's some type of a mentality, at least with my child, that it's summer break and it's time for a break. So, okay. Thank you very much. Great stuff going on. Genius, by the way.
I just have one quick question,
Go ahead.
please.
I'm done.
Can you just tell me a little bit about the difference in the number of credits earned by the students at the high school over the summer? What was the big difference between, I mean, that was a significant amount of credits.
Yeah, and this is a program that's I don't really oversee it, but I think I could probably maybe help answer your question. I think one is, you try and put teachers in those positions where students want to come and they want to work with those teachers. These are students that are behind in credits. What are we going to do to get those credits back? And a lot of it is who they're working with. Also, the accommodations are probably altered and helped for students, so there's online opportunities to make up some credits. I think every year, from here on out, we're probably going to see more of that. So that makes it easier for kids, that accessibility to do that. So I think just getting a lot of kids in those programs, getting them engaged, it makes a difference from before.
I hope that continues to grow that way.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
It's exciting.
Anybody else? Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up would be the establishment of a school board ad hoc subcommittee. I think that's up to me. We had recently at our previous, prior to our previous work session, board had discussions regarding how they felt about the importance of us working harder to get better at community engagement. At our last work session, we had a conversation about creating a subcommittee that will go out as a group and come back with recommendations to the board. And if anybody wants to touch more on the reason we're doing this, but I think, again, that's been conversations we've had. But we have in front of us tonight a recommended resolution to actually establish the committee. We have to have a resolution, the board has to approve that, and then we would move forward with the appointment. But tonight, the conversation is looking at the resolution. Are you comfortable with the way that it's worded? And if it is something that everybody's comfortable with as far as how it's written, this could actually come back at our next, I think, the 13th meeting as an action item, which is when then we would work to do the appointments at that point. So, in looking at this, I just have one question. It might just be how I read, but in the second whereas, it says it is the policy of the school board to designate school board ad hoc subcommittees when it is determined that a committee process facilities, should it be facilitates the mission of the school board?
Yeah,
Okay, so that would
I
be,
missed that one. I'm disappointed in myself.
well, I got one off on that.
I am disappointed in you too, for the record.
Don, you see that? Okay. That's the only thing I saw in going through that. Does anybody have questions, comments,
I like that.
suggestions?
It really reflects what we actually talked about last Tuesday, down to those 6 questions at the end there, like what is essentially for the people watching, that's kind of the goals, the questions that the committee would answer. And they reflect what we talked about and what Superintendent Kelly read back to us, so.
It might
I
be
feel
worth
good.
reading those all out here, just if nothing else on camera. The whereases are basically that we met, we said we wanted to do something about it, and that what the process is going to be, but the actual, the bottom part of it says the Board of Education of Columbia Heights Public Schools does hereby resolve to form a school board ad hoc subcommittee on community engagement to research, define, and make recommendations to the full school board on the following. Those 6 items Natty was referencing are, what are the best practices on community engagement as they relate to school board governance? What will be the school board role in the area of community engagement? What are specific recommendations for school board strategies to bolster community engagement? What revenues are available and expenditures necessary to support these school board community engagement efforts? What metrics will be used to evaluate the recommended school board community engagement strategies? And what is the timeline for the school board community engagement implementation? And for the record, the timeline, I mean, the board, the one of the whereases is that the subcommittee that would be established would bring back those recommendations no later than June 11th, 2019. And then the conversations would be had as a board as a whole, so that's kind of it in a nutshell. So,
I want to share a couple things, I think, especially for the folks in the audience and the folks who may be watching at home, just to kind of bring things full circle a little bit. And I think oftentimes we talk about things at the board meeting or we make decisions, and those things, you don't necessarily see how they're linked together. And so, you know, part of how this came about, obviously, we've had communications or conversations as a board at our meetings here and at work sessions about community engagement. 2 board members we usually send annually to the National School Board Conference. And at the last conference that I attended, I really focused on attending sessions that were related to community engagement based on some of the conversations we had as a board. So then from the learning that I did at that conference, we bring back and we can share and present some of those. And so that's, you know, some of the things that we then talk about as a board and say, here are some ideas, here are some things we learned. Here are some needs that we have. What can we do about that? And then we discussed at length at our work session about, you know, how do we take some ideas and how do we put them forth into action? And that is done through subcommittee work. And so that's kind of how you go from, you know, learning and education and involvement and conversations at the board table to then trying to put together an action plan. So just to kind of give a process on how we got here.
Thank you. That's good.
any questions or comments? This will be, if everybody's okay with that, we'll bring it back as an action item on November 13th. And if that's approved at that point, then we would work to establish a subcommittee on community engagement.
Just another spelling thing. The Board of Education of Columbia Heights Public Schools does hereby resolve, not resolved, and then to form a school board ad hoc between board and ad. There's maybe one or more extra spaces.
Make sure Don knows what you're talking about, because I'm not following. Sure that, okay. Anything else? Okay, that's an information item that'll come back again as an action item on November 13th. Next up would be first reading of policies. It would be policies 102, which is equal education opportunity, 205 open meeting and closed, 206 public participation in school board meetings and complaints about persons at school board meetings and data privacy considerations, 401 equal employment opportunity, 413 harassment and violence, 419 tobacco-free environment, 421 gifts to employees, 504 student dress and appearance. These policies will appear on a future agenda for approval. So what happens now, this stuff gets put up and people are able to make comments. So, and these are policies that have been reviewed and approved by the subcommittee on policy. So that's our first reading for that. Okay. And now we can move on to our action items. First up would be our annual report.
Good evening, Chair Larkin, members of the board. I'm bringing back the annual report as a governance question for you tonight. We have made the suggested revisions on the annual report, and with your approval, are hoping to mail it out to the community soon. And so we are asking for approval of the content of the 2017-2018 annual report.
Thank you. And that was the copy that we received in our board packets is the revised packet. So we have an opportunity there, and it's also here. What's that?
It's
Yep,
right here,
yeah, I
too.
was going to say, it's in board book as well, so.
It looks great.
Yeah.
Are we okay to talk about it?
Yeah, I was going to do a motion in a second, then open it up
Yep,
for
my
discussion, but
bad.
we can talk first if you want, Natty, it's okay.
Robert's rules.
We'll start with a motion to move this forward, please.
So moved.
Lorian,
Second.
Natty, seconded it, okay. Discussion.
I just appreciate the time and energy that was put into it, and I think it's a good reflection of the things going on in our district. Thank you.
And it truly was a collaboration between communications and teaching and learning.
Sure.
I also just want to say to you and to Executive Director Stenbeck, who's not here, I know that we've had several conversations in the past and at our work session, and I really appreciate, kind of the first thing you see when you open up the packet is just right there on what our goals were, what our strategies are, whether or not we met our goals, and what our response to that is. And so I think it's really important, just with an annual report, to be very transparent and upfront about what we're doing well and what we're not doing well, celebrate our successes, and talk about our areas of growth and what the strategies are that we have in place. So I really appreciate that, seeing that in this year's annual report.
Thank you.
Just for everyone who's watching, just to know that we talked extensively about this in other meetings. I think that goes unsaid sometimes, and it's hard to know what happens in a work session if you're not sitting through them, but appreciate your guys' responsiveness to us as we have our own thoughts about it and the listening that has happened. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Hearing no further discussion, we're approving the annual report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up would be a strategic roadmap 2019 to 2024. The board will be asked to approve the revised strategic roadmap.
Chair Larkin, members of the school board, I'm bringing forward the Strategic Direction 2019 to 2024. And it certainly reflects our mission of Columbia Heights Public Schools, creating worlds of opportunity for every learner in partnership with supportive small-town communities by challenging all to discover their talents, unleash their potential, and develop tools for lifelong success. You'll certainly hear our core values throughout this. And with the strategic roadmap, just a couple of points. First of all, that the revision of the Columbia Heights Public Schools strategic roadmap has been completed with input both from internal and external stakeholders, that the school district's Board of Education has reviewed and revised the strategic roadmap at its June 18th, 2018 and October 16th school board meetings, that this revised strategic roadmap has been based on the mission delivery point of desired daily experiences for students, families, and staff developed by the strategic planning process, that this revised strategic roadmap would be effective for 2019 to 2024, and that the school board governance question would be approval of the revised strategic roadmap for this 2019 to 2024. So this next slide shows the desired daily experiences for students, families, and staff. And it's being brought forward this evening for approval.
Start with a motion to move that forward.
So moved.
Molly?
Second.
Sal was the second? Okay. I think if there was a process that we were going to talk about on how we got here, this is certainly one of those, because it has been a process and it involved a lot of opportunities for the community to be involved, students to be involved, staff to be involved, and the board to be involved. So this has gone, there's been a lot of effort put into this. A lot of revisions have been made, even to the point of our last work session. Once again, we were still making those final tweaks, if you will, to the revision. So to everybody that participated, community members, staff, students, and you guys on the board as well, thank you, because it's been a fairly long path, but certainly I think one that will be appreciated, and I'm excited to get it moving forward. So that's my comments on it. Anybody else?
I just appreciate the conversations that, even though they were tough as a board, we had, and I appreciate those that took the time to listen and make all of the revisions that we were requesting to get that done. So thank
There might have
you.
been a couple of those.
Yeah,
Couple.
sorry about that.
The 11th hour.
And if I can build on that, Molly, I know we're trying to get to a football game here, but your comment about, and at least from the board level, and there were some conversations where we maybe didn't necessarily agree with what one or the other was saying, but again, I think we continued to and did demonstrate that we can have those conversations, we can talk about them, we can come to some type of not even agree to disagree, and understanding that everybody is reasonably comfortable with. So a lot of respect for you guys for that through this process, so thank you. And thanks for bringing that up, Molly. I didn't think to mention that, so.
I want to add on to that too, that I mean, again, just reiterating that this was, I mean, it was a process. And it was, you know, we had a commitment from the administration, from the staff, because each of the principals held meetings in their schools, and parents were invited and community members were invited, and, you know, information sessions and brainstorming were held. And I got to attend several of those, and I just really appreciated seeing people who had kids in school, who didn't have kids in school, who are part of our community, who are voters, taking the time to share their thoughts and ideas in terms of our strategic roadmap, which really is, the strategic roadmap really defines who we are, what we do, why we do it, and how we do it. And it's a driving force for us in setting our goals and expectations. And so I do really value and appreciate all the folks that took time out of their days to share their ideas in making this actually happen.
And just one other comment. I know we're trying to hurry. But I really appreciated the additional effort taken to get all of our demographics represented. That was really important to me, and I'm glad that we saw that through. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that it got done in the time frame that was not really requested, but directed by the board, so, because there certainly was a lot of work that went into it, so thank you for that. Hey, anybody else? All right.
Can I make one comment? I'm
Absolutely.
sorry. It's killing me, Maddie.
I'm okay, it's okay. I told her to wait until dawn, but.
Because I don't know if it needs to be commented, there's like a typo. So before we approve it, I know we wordsmith this thing like crazy, but on the core values, it says what drives our word and actions, and should that be what drives our words?
Work.
And
Isn't it work?
I think it's words and actions.
Words drives our words and actions, or our
I think it was work.
Work, right?
I believe it started with work.
I think it's work.
I don't remember, but I don't think it's word. So can we approve it sans clarifying what that word is
Provisionally
supposed
with
to
the
be?
clarification
Whatever it
of
was
that
at the
word.
work session
Whatever
versus
it
what it
was
is
at
you
the
want
last
to change
work
it to
session.
tonight.
Unless we
Lorian?
missed it there too.
Lorian, your
I don't
provision
remember
is
having-
that whatever it was at the work session versus what you're thinking
Oh.
it should be tonight, or?
If it said word at our work session, I don't know.
I don't
that-
think it said word, I think it said works, and you're thinking it should be words.
Yeah, I don't remember. I just know that word, I don't
And
think
that's
that's
my,
right.
that's my question, is if it was words, it would change back to that. If it was works?
Or work.
Work.
I'm
not
pretty sure
works.
it was work.
Because it's how we work, we were talking
Are
about.
you able to peek at that,
Work and
Don? or-
actions.
Yeah.
It says word.
It says word.
That's the old one?
Picked up on that.
We didn't
Wow.
pick it up.
We picked up on everything else but that.
That's why I think it's supposed to be what
Right
drives
down
our
to
words
commas.
and actions.
But is,
No?
It
but
says
did- What
word.
did we change it to?
We didn't change it.
Did you
We-
make, you wrote down all the changes on yours?
I did, I wrote quite a few of them, but then we kept going back and forth on some things, so I'm not sure.
Talked about that part, yeah.
I just had it a second ago.
Sorry.
No, I'm glad you brought it up.
I think it's supposed to be work.
If
What
we
drives
think
our work and
through
actions.
it, we're not just worried about what drives our words,
No, it's not our words,
It's
it's
our work
work
and
and
actions.
actions.
because it was talking
And
about
it's
our
the-
employees and,
And core values, yeah.
Yeah,
Very top right description of core values.
and it's the D and the K
Drives our
when you
work,
type,
not
it's
drives
just
our
the
words.
different.
nothing drives our words. It drives our work.
I think it drives our words.
You think
Right.
it's words?
I think it's work. What drives
I
our
think
work?
it's
We were
work.
talking about the employees and,
And it's just a one-letter
The-
difference, which hand you
Okay,
type
yeah.
the middle finger. Key.
If you know how to type, otherwise it's.
Can I suggest we change it to work? And then if we find
Can we
evidence
just change
that-
it to work and then,
Yep.
are
And
you
then-
okay with that, Lorian, that it's not words?
Yeah, I know that both Zena and the superintendent went
Are
to
not here.
great detail to make changes, so you don't have their notes, do you? The changes that they were making at that point? Maybe just review it at that point. I guess, well, as long as we're
I don't think
discussing
it
it.
changed it doesn't
It
change
changes
the
the
intent
intent.
of the content. It's just a grammatical
It is a
thing. So,
grammatical,
That's,
Or potentially just a typo.
Okay,
right,
so
just a typo, yes.
you're saying work,
Work.
Yeah,
work,
I think that's what when we talked about driving our work and driving our.
I remember saying that, somebody said it,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, great.
you're comfortable with that?
was Word, the word was Word on June 18th when Dennis was out here.
And then we kind
We've
of
just
tore it up
overlooked that.
last week, and I was
Missed
just curious
it.
as to, and it could be something that we missed, so.
We got kinda
let's
wrapped up in
presume
the
we
other
missed
stuff.
it, and then if the conversation, if the consensus is work, are you comfortable with that, Lori? Work versus
If that's
works?
the consensus, yes.
Okay, 'cause, yeah, at this point,
It makes the most sense,
okay.
right?
Yeah, I think it makes the most sense.
And we'll leave the out for if the superintendent or Zena made a different change when we were talking about it, and it was words that, we obviously agreed to that at that point. We okay going
Sounds
back
good.
to that, or we're gonna stick with work?
I'll stick with work.
That's where I'm at.
I'm fine, yeah.
Laura, you wanna weigh in?
And it doesn't affect what the core values are. It just makes sense that what drives our work and
Our
actions.
actions.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, what drives our work with a K and actions? Any other questions, comments, or typos? Fair question. All right. We are approving the strategic roadmap 2019-2024. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain, and the motion carries. Next up, and our last action item of the night would be the school board will be asked to approve the superintendent's goals for 2018-2019. Again, in a work session, the superintendent did a much better job than I will expounding on her goals for 2018-2019. I will go through and I will read them as written, and then we'll start with a motion in a second, as we normally would. I apologize.
so moved.
Paula?
Second.
Laura? And I'll read through them. Goal Area 1 for Columbia Heights Public School District Strategic Discipline Plan. The goal Area 1 is Columbia Heights Public School District Strategic Discipline Plan. The rationale is given that Columbia Heights Public School District was cited by Minnesota Department of Human Rights for disproportionalities of student suspensions, given that the district superintendent and school district attorney, with direction from the Columbia Heights School Board of Education, negotiated a settlement agreement with MDHR in good faith, and given that mutually agreed upon settlement agreement is enforced for multiple years. It is proposed that the superintendent oversees the implementation of the Columbia Heights Public School District Strategic Discipline Plan Settlement Agreement. The outcomes that we should see would be revise and combine the district student behavior handbook on rights and responsibilities, establish a district assessment team, explore possibilities of and funding for a district discipline supervisor, provide and/or expand professional development opportunities for school personnel in the area of cultural competency, obtain qualitative engagement data and input from parents, students, and teachers on issues related to discipline. This goal will be tied to the Columbia Heights Public Schools Strategic Roadmap by strengthening vision, best practices, and resource management. We do school well, academic excellence with access to flexible programming and options designed around student needs. It would also support strategic direction A, which expands access and opportunities by turbocharging what works and redesigning what needs to be better. Goal Area 2, strategic alignment of college board programming in Columbia Heights Public Schools. The rationale of this goal would be is that given the mission statement, given the mission of Columbia Heights Public Schools is to create worlds of opportunity for every learner in partnership with supportive small-town communities by challenging all to discover their talents, unleash their potential, and develop tools for lifelong success. Given that Columbia Heights Public Schools' world's best workforce plan is required by law to focus on all students attaining career and college readiness before graduating from high school, and given that College Board strategies and programs support access, instruction, and assessment, and given that Columbia Heights Public Schools are active partners with College Board programs, assessments, and activities. It is proposed that the superintendent direct the design, implementation, and review of a systemic approach to College Board programs, assessments, and activities within the Columbia Heights School District. The outcomes would be to establish a school board blue ribbon advisory task force to develop a 3-year operational plan and recommendations for a College Board programming by June of 2019. establish position, authority, and areas of responsibility for implementation and review of College Board programs, assessments, and activities with the organization. Facilitate the attendance of teams of targeted staff to attend local, regional, and national College Board forums to gain access to current information and data that would strengthen and support College Board programming for students within the district. Attend and provide district feedback at the national level by participating in the College Board Superintendent Advisory Council. Apply and establish an official membership seat on the College Board General Assembly. This goal area would be tied to the Public Schools Strategic Roadmap, Columbia's Public Schools Strategic Roadmap by strengthening vision, academic excellence with access to flexible programming and options around student needs. It would also support strategic direction A, expand access and opportunities by turbocharging what works and redesigning what needs to be better. Discussion. Questions or comments?
I appreciated how well thought out they were and how intentional, and I think maybe it was you, Lorraine, or maybe it was you, Nick, I'm sorry, about her passion being tied into them. I think it's really good.
The passion area with the College Board and, yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, hearing no further discussion. Superintendent Schools 2018-19, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Board topics. Highland Turkey Bingo, November 2nd.
Got to vote next Tuesday.
Okay, vote, yep.
And then, as Molly mentioned, there's 2 home strikers games. Yep. 4:15 at the.
4:15, both at the Highlander Center, Monday and Wednesday.
Monday, Wednesday. Okay.
Yes, tomorrow's away.
And the vote is a week from Tuesday.
Yes, yeah, that's right. I won't show up next Tuesday. It'll still be
Please.
October.
I mean, you can still vote.
I could, early voting.
And I think it's safe to say that the Highlander football team is going to win this evening, so there should be a playoff game
How
this
would you know
weekend.
that? Just
Just,
Intuition.
it's right there. I mean, come on.
Intuition.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
come
Yeah,
on.
X-ray vision.
Right.
Anybody else? Board topics. Hearing none. Adjourn the meeting at 8:23. Thanks, everybody.